That's where the policy conference is going to be taking place for the African National Congress, and hopefully at the end of the 4 days they'll come up with some kind of policy directive that they'll take to Mangaung in December. And to give us a little bit more insight on how this policy conference plays out, who's going to be there, and what happens at these conferences, I'm now joined by the ANC's Khoza. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Welcome to you.
Morning.
All right, so take us through the process that takes us to Gallagher Estate next week. Where does the idea of generating policy begin, and how does it escalate up?
Well, the ANC, after the election of the National Executive Committee, in its first sitting, it elects chairpersons of subcommittees and constitute a number of subcommittees that are centered around policy issues, like you have Jeff Hadebe currently as the head of policy. You've got a chairperson of the Economic Transformation Committee. These committees are seized with the responsibility of looking at policy that's going to guide the ANC. In most instances, you'll find that there is policy that exists. Their responsibility is to look at how that policy works in operation. Is it effective? Is there a challenge with that policy? And in the run-up to a policy conference, they would do a review of policies, identify policy gaps, and have discussions. And they involve quite a number of people outside of the structures of the ANC. To solicit their views in terms of their thinking and so on. And once that's done, it's then taken to the NEC before the elective conferences. As we have said previously, that in the past we used to have a national conference of the ANC that would discuss policy and also elect leadership and take and adopt a program of action. But with the passage of time, it became evident that if you concentrate all these issues into one, the discussions are always compromised because of time. So it was decided that 6 months before the national conference, there must be a policy conference.
How does the ordinary man on the street, the card-carrying member in Soweto, get involved in formulating policy for the ANC?
Once the discussion documents for the policy conference are adopted, they go back to the branches as part of a monitored process, where each branch must hold a BGM, a branch general meeting, where these documents are going to be discussed. There are presentations made, they are discussed, a branch adopts a position, they go to the region, where all the branches will converge. And once the region have gone through the process, it goes to the province. That's why in the past 2 weeks, we've had provincial general councils to look at the policy discussions, where you aggregate the provincial position based on what the branches have been saying in the run-up to the PGC. And provinces will then come to the national policy conference with a provincial position on these policies.
So what's going to happen between Gallagher Estate and Mangaung?
Well, what comes out of Gallagher Estate effectively will be proposals that will be tabled in Mangaung. So what it means, there'll be a continued refinement of the position that comes up. In the last national policy conference and the subsequent national conference, what emerged in the policy conference and what was adopted in the conference, there were slight modifications of what emerged from the policy conference. But broadly speaking, what comes out of the policy conference would give the guide in terms of where the organization would want to go.
All right, so we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thank you for giving us some insight into how the process works.
You're welcome.